His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Svankaracharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Bhagavatam Ki, Shri Radha Radhanath Ki, Shri Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Sankirtan Yajna Ki, Gaurivanande, all glories to their soul devotees, all glories to their soul devotees, all glories to their simple devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're doing an overview of chapter 14 of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, or as it appears in the Krishna books. I understand that's correct, right? Yes. And it's quite a chapter. It's not a small chapter. So it may be that we won't finish it today. It's possible, unless we sort of just race through. So anyway, let's just see how far we get, and then if we don't finish, I suppose continuously, perhaps something like that. Right. So it's a nice program that you've adopted of going through the Bhagavatam, or going through the 10th canto, I guess, chapter by chapter, so everyone gets a clearer idea of how the 10th canto is developed. It's extremely important. Srila Prabhupada, when he began to do, or when he was doing the Krishna books, he was responding, at least partially, he was responding to concerns that the devotees expressed, or that he expressed really, more than anyone, that seeing physically he was really quite an old age, so he was concerned he might not be able to finish the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, as things turned out, he was not able to actually. But he wanted to, he was concerned because 10th canto is extremely important and very definitive in so many ways. And he felt and he understood it was very important that if somehow or other he was not able to do the whole 10th canto, then at least there would be, in the form of the Krishna books, there would be a form of the 10th canto as presented by him. So therefore the Krishna books are very important in that sense. This is, you could say, Srila Prabhupada's translation and commentary on the 10th canto, more or less. So, and another point is that in the Bhagavatam, our BBT Bhagavatam itself, Srila Prabhupada, he got as far as the 13th chapter. It was the last chapter that Prabhupada completed. And if you've seen, of course, there are different pieces of video of Prabhupada at that particular point in time. Prabhupada completely bedridden and just not looking. I mean, sure, it's really quite amazing the condition he was in physically. But he was continuing with his service of translating and commenting on the Bhagavatam, despite just like in material terms, in an impossible type of physical condition. If you've seen it, just lying there, giant weight barrages right next to him with the dictaphone, and various other devotees are gathered around in his quarters in Vrindavan, and you can just see, I don't want to go into it too much, but you can just see the condition he was in physically. Just amazing, actually, that he was able to continue on at all. And one interesting little side point, really, is that in one of the very last verses of the 13th chapter of the 10th canto, Srila Prabhupada speaks a little extensively about ISKCON Durban. You may have seen it. It's really nice. Really, extremely nice. Prabhupada talking about ISKCON in South Africa and ISKCON in Durban. Yeah. So this is chapter 14. At least as it appears in the Bhagavatam, it's the first chapter, done by, it was a team of devotees actually, generally, I mean often it's attributed to Fridayananda Maharaj, and he was the leader of the team, but there was a team, and they were working on the 10th canto, but they had this Krishna book with them, which just very nicely deals with the 10th canto. It's what we call a summary study, what Prabhupada called a summary study, just like Nectar of Devotion. Nectar of Devotion is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of Srila Goswami, and that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a book structured, you could say, like the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita in the sense there are verses one after the other with purports. So, but Prabhupada, he presented it, he amalgamated basically the verses and the purports, and sometimes you could see that, oh yes, here's a particular verse. Other times it's amalgamated. And similarly here, and we'll point out at least one and maybe a few places in this 14th chapter where there's a particular verse, Prabhupada's addressing a particular verse from the 10th canto, which is of particular importance. I mean, at least 1, verse 8 of this chapter is quite frequently quoted here and there by our devotees, and to some degree by Prabhupada. But we'll see how it just it appears within the general context of the summary study, this amalgamated form, but amalgamated, but still the verses are there basically, and purports are there, you can say. So, okay, let us go through, and like I said, it's quite a long chapter, and it's often very philosophical. There's a little complexity there. Lord Brahma analyzing Lord Krishna and how he does things. But at the same time, it's also very approachable, it's very beautiful. And there's a number of very nice descriptions, Lord Brahma giving very nice descriptions of Krishna, Krishna's beauty, his appearance, and his childhood pastimes, because Krishna's just a small boy at this stage. Lord Brahma, in the previous chapter, it's all about how Lord Brahma was sort of kind of challenging Lord Krishna by stealing or trying to steal the calves, and then the cowherd boys. Anyway, you went through that last week or whatever it was. So you know that story. That's quite a story. The Lord Krishna in the end calls or so many Lord brothers, and they come some. Our brother has 4 heads, which of course by our standards is, very extraordinary, to put it mildly. Sometimes you get these like Siamese twins. They have 2 heads, etc. And even some of them just live their whole lives together. I mean, literally together, some of these Siamese twins. And, of course, they're like freaks of nature. Very extraordinary. The Lord Brahma has 4 heads, but it's not like a Siamese twin. It's like a proper arrangement. Yeah, he's fully, totally functional. But he was feeling himself to be a little important, or very important even. And Krishna called these brothers, and some of them had 10 heads, which astounded Lord Brahma. Some had 20, some had 100, and some had a lot more. It's all relevant, all related to the size of the universe. The particular Lord Brahma is the creator or engineer of, and continues after just the initial engineering, continues to be the main manager, really, of, anyway, that was the previous chapter. So, when Lord Brahma saw that, then it was talk about a wake-up call. I imagine we've all had wake-up calls from time to time when, we got a little carried away with ourselves, but then somehow by the arrangement of the Lord and all the devotees, we were shown that, we're really not so important after all. I mean, we're really not so important. So it's very purifying. and massive wake-up call. And his consciousness has changed completely into, instead of like a sort of challenging type of mentality, but an extremely respectful state of mind. And I thought I could just read the translations of a couple of verses written by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in the beginning of his 10th canto commentary. Just a couple of verses, I'll read just the translations. In the 14th chapter, Brahma, drowning in an ocean of devotion to the Lord, awareness of the Lord, and the Lord's great sweetness and opulence, offers prayers. Also, a question about love for the Lord is answered. Let the saintly devotees love me, because I am a gem merchant who does not carefully count his gems. But I am not ashamed. I feel blessed to have placed the Lord's pastimes in my heart. Courageous by meditating on my spiritual master's lotus feet, my mind yearns to cross the ocean of Brahma's prayers. There's a few translations of these verses which we have available, and one translation of that verse, the third verse we just read, is that the devotee translator is saying, I will cross the ocean of material existence on the boat of the prayers of Lord Brahma. Yeah, so there are so many prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam, so many prayers, and generally every single one of them. Even I'm reading Daksha's at the moment, Daksha's prayers to the Lord in the 6th canto. And Daksha's a bit of a character, but really amazing prayers. So there's so many wonderful prayers, but oftentimes devotees attribute or accept these prayers of Lord Brahma as being arguably the most important prayers in the whole Bhagavatam, because they're full of nectar of the beauty of the Lord, but they're just wonderful analyses of the Lord. Who is the Lord? What is the Lord? His characteristics, his potencies, etc. Shri Radha Radha, Shri Giri Govardhan, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. So I'm going to go through the way I normally do this, like I have been doing at least with Bhakti Thaitaris, paragraph by paragraph through the commentaries. So in the first paragraph, Lord Brahma makes the point, first point, that you, my Lord, you're the only worshipable Supreme Lord. Another point I must mention is that there's a picture, there's a painting in our Bhagavatam of Lord Brahma offering these prayers, and Krishna standing there, little Krishna, small boy, and what? Anyway, Lord Krishna is standing there, and in his left hand, he's holding some, do you know, children, what he's holding? Some yogurt and fruit. in his left hand, not in his right hand, which just goes to show, our left hand is not taken as seriously as the right hand, or not considered as important, I suppose, to say, as the right hand. But with Krishna, it doesn't matter. It's okay. You can take some of the remnants of his holding in his left hand also. So, Lord Brahma, he's looking at Lord Krishna. He's kneeling down, bowing down, tears coming from his eyes. And he's offering these prayers. And it's not specifically mentioned in this chapter, but it's said that Lord Krishna is watching him. Krishna's standing, holding his prasadam. And Krishna's thinking, who is this four-headed man? And he's offering prayers to someone. But it looks like he's offering them to me. But why is he doing that? He's attributing all sorts of incredible qualifications and characteristics and so on to me. But why is he doing that? I'm just a cowherd boy. And I hope he finishes quickly, because I want to get back to my breakfast. Oops. Yeah, right. So he begins his prayers by, very appropriately anyway, but particularly under the circumstances, by saying, actually, you are the only worshipable Lord. Yeah. In other words, not me. I had some other idea, but actually, you're the only worshipable Lord. So I offer my humble obeisances, I offer my prayers to you, just to please you. And he describes the Lord for the first two paragraphs, at least, as everything appears here in the Krishna book, that your body is the color of, the way Prabhupada puts it, of clouds filled with water. Normally we hear about, rain clouds, monsoon clouds. But they're just different ways of saying clouds filled with water. Sometimes Prabhupada, expresses himself in these kind of quaint, unusual ways. And you are glittering. Krishna is effulgent. You're glittering with a silver, electric aura emanating from your yellow garments. And so then again he says, let me offer my respectful and repeated obeisances unto you, son of Nanda Maharaj, standing before me with conch shell earrings. Do you have conch shell earrings? Anyway, Krishna does. Conch, sometimes they're sharp shaped. Conch shell earrings and a peacock feather. Well, actually, according to the presentation here, he's addressing the Lord in the third person. He's been saying a little bit there, you, but now he says, let me offer my respectful repeated obeisances unto the son of Maharaj Nanda, who is standing before me with conch shell earrings and peacock feather on his head, not on your head, on his head. His face is beautiful. He's wearing a helmet and is garlanded by forest flowers. and he stands with a morsel of food in his hand. He is decorated with a cane, a buffalo horn bugle, and a flute. He stands before me with small lotus feet. You know, this is a device, a literary device of the offering of respect. When you address a person, not just how are you doing, but in the third person, he or she. Yeah, it's a mood of respect, or expressing a mood of respect. And even Lord Krishna does it himself in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18. Who knows which verse? Bhakti Shastris here. 1861. Ishvara Sarvabhutana Hrideshya Junatishnati Ramayana Sarvabhutani Yantra Bhutani Maya. That the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart. It's Krishna speaking about the super soul. But the super soul, you know, is a special form and must be respected, because the super soul does very amazing things, particularly in relation to us. He's managing everything, including us. So Krishna addresses himself in the third person as he. Yeah. But then again, he switches back. In the third paragraph, I thought some of them might have the book here, and you'd be able to go through it yourselves. But he says, and again, it's an expression of his humility, and he's really feeling like expressing things in a humble way because of the wake-up call. People may say, I am the master of all Vedic knowledge, which people do say. In a certain sense, it's true. At least within this universe, he's the head of our Sampradaya. He was instructed by Lord Krishna himself. So, he's our master, you can say, in that sense of the Sampradaya. So people may say, I'm the master of Vedic knowledge. He says, I'm supposed to be the creator of the universe. But, having said that, I mean, that's true. People do feel like that. Many people, and they talk like that. But actually, I can't understand you, who are now standing in front of me. Just like a child, I can't understand you. And actually, the way Prabhupada presents it, he goes on for a number of paragraphs here, sort of exploring and developing this point of how Krishna can be understood, particularly by mental speculation. And he can't be understood just by ordinary material means, but he can be understood by hearing. This is one of the main points Prabhupada stresses in the first few paragraphs, how Krishna can't be understood by speculation, but he can be understood by devotion. Or not just by devotion, but by hearing and chanting. And Prabhupada says, either from the Lord, which would mean referring to Shastra, or from his devotees, then we can understand him. Otherwise, it's not possible to understand Lord Krishna. In fact, I've mentioned a number of times, when we were doing book distribution, traveling Sankirtan, around this time in 1973, quite a while ago, every morning during Krsna, we would play a tape of Prabhupada giving a class. And I remember one day, Srila Prabhupada was talking about Krishna in Vrindavan and his pastimes, and hearing about these things and chanting these pastimes, and how Krishna displays his qualities in his pastimes, via his pastimes. In a certain sense, you could say his pastimes are like vehicles for him to display his qualities, because they're all just super extraordinary. And because of his qualities, he does super extraordinary things. So Srila Prabhupada, talking about this in that particular class, said, just try to understand Krishna. The next day, we just played another tape, just another tape. And Prabhupada was talking about how Krishna is behind the creation, Karana Dakshaya Vishnu, Gava Dakshaya Vishnu, Shira Dakshaya Vishnu, and the universe is coming out, and all of this, and fairly complicated. And Prabhupada said, don't try to understand Krishna. And it was the next morning. It was sort of a wake-up call at the time, you could say. It was a very interesting experience. And, Prabhupada sometimes says things, not so often, but sometimes, which if you put them next to some other statements that he makes on the same sort of subject, it may appear like they're contradicting each other. Yeah, and this is a very interesting and important point in Krishna consciousness. Like here, Prabhupada is going to make a little further on in one of the paragraphs, a little further on. He talks about, or Lord Brahma talks about how you, my Lord, you are nirguna. Nirguna, well, nir means without, or you have no guna, qualities. You have no qualities. And this is a point, this sort of statement is made here and there about Krishna or about the absolute truth in the Vedic literatures and in our literatures too, from the Vedic literatures, that the Lord may be nirguna, nirrupa, no form, but it's explained this. What it means is he doesn't have any material qualities. He has so many qualities, but he doesn't have material qualities. The qualities he has are spiritual. But as Lord Brahma is explaining here in the earlier part of this 14th chapter, how are you going to understand this? You can only understand it by hearing. If you try to figure it out for yourself, you will not understand it. You will just become confused. And as Lord Chaitanya told Prakashananda Saraswati, that's what is in the 8th chapter of the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, that what you do, you accept Vyasadeva, the teachings of Vyasadeva. That's what your whole program is based on. But the problem with that is that when there's an apparent contradiction, you reject one of the, there's two statements, one apparently contradicts the other, like you and Nirupa, or the Supreme Lord walks, but he does not walk. Right in the same verse. So you reject one and accept the other. This is what you do. So actually, the way Lord Chaitanya explains it, actually you're in a seriously compromised position, because effectively what you're saying is Vyasadeva is not really authoritative. But you are deciding what among the different things he says are acceptable. So you are the authority. You're putting yourself above the Vyasadeva. And how can you do that? And still say that you accept the Vedas as authoritative. So anyway, yeah. So therefore, Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada, in the earlier part of the chapter, they're talking about how, if you want to understand the Lord, you can only understand either by hearing from the Lord or by hearing from the realized devotees, or the devotees who repeat the realized devotees and repeat the Lord. This is the only way. Otherwise, you must be confused. You cannot avoid being confused. And, this is sort of like the trick of the Lord, really, who's ultimately behind all the Vedic literatures, that people who are not submissive to him or not submissive to the devotees cannot understand them. And therefore, they become inaccessible to those types of people. And even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Shri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, I think it's at the beginning of the Vajrayana, anyway, it's somewhere there. He says that I am very happy that the Lord has expressed himself in these ways, apparently confusing ways, because it means that the pig-like non-devotees, that's what he says, the pig-like non-devotees cannot approach the Lord. So the Lord is protected from being dealt with by these people who are just extremely unqualified, but they think that because they have some sort of analytical intelligence, that therefore they can analyze and understand. It's a trick, it's a strategy, to keep the unqualified people out of this. It's very personal. The Vedic literatures are very personal. There's a book of, who is it? Yamuna Charya, Stotra Ratna, the jewel-like prayers. And he talks about the Vedic literatures. He mentioned Bhagavad Gita, and thanks the Lord for presenting these things. And he says, these things, which are the intimate feelings of your heart, which you're expressing, you're revealing the intimate feelings of your heart in these literatures. And of course, any person, their intimate feelings are generally not just for anybody, everybody, and anybody. keep them, within a very small circle. Yeah, maybe just one other person or something like that. So yes, and Prabhupada refers to Brahma Samhita, where Krishna is described as being Satchitananda Vigraha. His body is eternal, fully conscious and full of bliss. Yes. And his body is all spiritual. So there's no difference between his body and his self. And he says, so therefore he can see with his hands. He can see with his hands. He can hear with his eyes. He can accept offerings, eat offerings with his legs. He can create with his mouth. And then in the next paragraph, Brahma continues, but he appears as a cowherd boy for the benefit of his devotees. And then Lord Brahma apologizes for stealing the cowherd boys and calves. Anyway, you discussed that last time. It's very amazing pastime. And one of our acharyas makes the point. Who discussed that? Was it you? Someone. Anyway, one of our acharyas makes the point that even though Krishna manifested another set of cowherd boys and another set of calves, but it was another set. It wasn't actually the originals. And he makes the point that the originals stayed out in the forest for the whole year. That the pastime of the expansions, sort of taking over with the general pastimes, that was going on. It went on for 1 year. That the expanded cowherd boys and expanded calves, they were living in Vrindavan and they were going out every day. But the original cowherd boys, they was out in the forest for a year. And they were just by the arrangement of Yoga Maya moving around in the forest. And when the expanded Krishna and the cowherd boys and calves would come, by the arrangement of Yoga Maya, the real ones would all head off in another direction. So as not to, for a surprise encounter in the forest. What are you doing here? You look like me. And the cowherd men were going out every day also with the cows. And by the arrangement of Yoga Maya, the real cowherd boys and calves, they would go off in other directions in relation to them also. So it was quite a situation. And they survived for a year. No problem. But back in the village, someone got the right idea, because they knew that all the gopis want to marry Krishna. And so someone got the right idea that all the gopis should marry all the cowherd boys, because this year is a very auspicious year. So Radharani married Krishna, and the other gopis married the other cowherd boys were forms of Krishna. And normally all the gopis were thinking, we want to marry Krishna, but how are we going to do it? Because Radharani is going to marry Krishna. Oh, what's going to happen to us? We're going to have to marry some of these other boys. These sort of local cowherd boys. not, compared to Krishna. They're nothing special. But now they were all Krishna. All the cowherd boys were forms of Krishna. So now the gopis were thinking, well, actually it wouldn't be so bad to marry one of the cowherd boys. And when the idea came up, they all said, yeah, okay, let's do it. But we don't know what happened when the real cowherd boys came back. Anyway, Hare Krishna. So Lord Brahma goes on, and in the 8th paragraph, Lord Brahma is talking about how the Lord is all-pervading, and knowledge of this, his all-pervading nature, is never within the knowledge of the ordinary living entity, but it can be understood to some extent. So therefore, there's one verse, actually, one verse, it's a very nice verse, and it's expressed here. There may be some philosophers or scientists who can study the cosmic nature from atom to atom. They may be so advanced that they can count the atomic composition of the cosmic atmosphere of all the planets and stars in the sky, or even the shining molecular particles of the sun, or of the stars and other luminaries in the sky. You may get some people who can count and sort of get a grasp, to some degree, of even the atomic composition of the universe. Yeah. And how many stars there are in the sky, how many grains of sand there are, like on all the beaches and all the deserts. You may get some people who may be able to get some idea of that, but it is not possible to count the qualities of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. Yeah. And it said, one may estimate, actually in the next paragraph, one may estimate the qualities of the Lord at one moment, but the next moment the qualities have increased. So it is not possible to make a real estimation of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. And therefore is called Nirguna. And one shouldn't uselessly labor trying to understand these things. Rather, one should try to understand one's position in life in this world. One should try to understand how one is going through distress and happiness. It's all predestined. One should try to understand that. If you're going to think, try to analyze that. And otherwise just do devotional service. And then one verse is then presented in the course. It's the course of the 10th paragraph. The verse is, it's 10th canto, chapter 14, verse 8. Tateyu kampam susabhikshamano, unjale evaka kritam vipakam, ridvaga porbir vidadana namaste, jivetu yo mukti pade sadayabha. And the translation in the Bhagavatam is, my dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation for it has become his rightful claim. The way it's presented in the Krishna book, in the 10th paragraph right here, is as follows. So the devotee who's meant to be trying to understand his distress and happiness and how it's all working, karma, while performing devotional service, he knows that whatever may happen to the body is due to his past fruit of activities. If one lives such a simple life in devotional service, then automatically he inherits the transcendental abode of the Lord. Actually, every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and a son of the Godhead. Each has the natural right to inherit and share the transcendental pleasures of the Lord. But due to contact of matter, conditioned living entities have become practically disinherited. This is Prabhupada's, the way he has expressed this specific verse. That we have, because we're the children of the Lord, eternally. So as happens with every child, they have a natural right to inheritance from their parents. So we have that right to inherit the kingdom of God. But we've become disinherited. Sometimes parents get cranky and they decide, they're not going to give one of the children whatever. I know one, not so long ago, someone got really cranky with their children, and a rich person, like multi-millionaire, and so they didn't give the children or child anything. They gave however many millions to a dog. Hare Krishna. This is the intelligence of people in the material world. But anyway, we can get our inheritance back, get the rights back by rendering devotional service, but not just by rendering devotional service, but rendering it in a very humble way, being vividly aware about disqualifications. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your grace and cause its mercy upon them, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So, Sridhar Swami, one of our great previous acharyas, he discusses this particular verse at some length, and he raises the question, what is the qualification a child needs for inheriting